My dear friends, you are welcome to another edition of our program, Demystifying Academic Research. In this program, we try to make academic research understandable for everyone who is interested in research. We have been talking about the issue of literature review, and we thought that because of the importance of literature review in any academic work, it was good for us to take it gradually and handle the various parts in details. There are various approaches that one can take to approach a literature review, but the one that we chose is the one that has 5 stages. And we say the first stage is the initial research, the second stage is the cut and paste of relevant information, the third stage is what we call the conceptual framework, the fourth stage is this acronym PEER, point, example, explain, repeat, and the last stage is supposed to be conclusions and introduction. We already started thus far, and yesterday we were handling the issue of the PEER, the point, example, explain, and repeat. And we dealt with it so well, and then we agreed that we are going to continue today with the conclusions and introduction. My name is Mike Booker, and I welcome all of us who have come to share with us this day as we share our experiences, we share knowledge in the little that we know about literature review, and of course we try to demystify academic research. Dear friends, today we are supposed to take the conclusions and the introduction, but we felt that because of the importance of conclusion and introduction, and because of recent changes that have been discovered in the field of academic research, it would be good for us to to separate conclusions from introduction, so that those who are beginners can benefit more, and those who are experienced people in research can be reminded better. And so today we want to make an appeal that we are going to handle only the conclusions, and tomorrow we'll take only the introduction. Dear friend, for a good conclusion in a literature review writing, for it to actually have the message, there are 4 parts that you should talk of. Remember that no matter your field of study, there is a general way to write a conclusion. And let me quickly say that this general way we have seen that has 4 parts. The first part is you are supposed to do a recapitulation. The second, it's still in that conclusion, you have the limitations. And then you equally continue to know, so you know that you have the implications for further study and implications for policymakers. So there are 4 main parts: recapitulation as the first part, limitation as the second part, implication for further study as the third part, and implication for policymakers as the fourth part. Let us handle all these parts in details. Now, this is the conclusion of a literature review that gives the good message. Remember that as you are writing the conclusion, you should start with a statement that gives an idea of what has been happening in the paper. That's what we talk about recapitulation. You summarize the major points that we have talked of in the paper. Remember, for instance, in our case, we're discussing about the topic was, research was on pastoral insensibility in cultural diversity and the good of the church. In the PEER, we saw that there were 2 schools of thought. One school of thought says that there is a correlation between the attitude of the pastor to cultural diversity and the growth of the church. Another one says there is no correlation between how the pastor behaves in cultural diversity or diverse sector and the growth of the church. So those were the 2 contesting school of thought that we had in our PEER, the last stage. And so we are saying that in the conclusion now, you will now recapitulate these points, restate it, the major points that we have noticed in this paper. That's the first part. Then the next part is the limitations. Some scholars think that to give the limitation of your paper is a weakness. Far from it. I beg to disagree. I think it shows integrity and transparency if you are able to state that my paper is limited by these factors. I could not handle this, but I handled this, and you state your reasons. So the limitation should come from your own side of view, your own work, and also limitations from the papers that you research. For instance, in our case, we can see that The paper we research, most of the scholars wrote about congregations in cities. And so they ignore congregations of the rural areas. So that's already a limitation in their paper. This will also go down to when it comes to further research. You must start stating that probably because the rural areas seem to be abandoned, you may propose that people should search in the rural areas. It's already a pointer and a gap for other further researchers. So we're saying the limitation is both ways, both on your paper itself and on the paper that you studied. Now the next part is implication of further studies. Now, according to what you have discovered, you can now say that, okay, it is important that other researchers or those who are interested in research can therefore look at this particular sector that you did not look at. And so you are proposing to them that they can search in this area. There can be other gaps they can fill in this area during next further research. And you yourself, for instance, if your research was in the first degree level, you can now take the gap that you have discovered in the first degree level to become your master research studies. Just like when you have finished your master research study, you can see an important gap. You use that gap as a study for your PhD. Or for maybe your postdoc, whatever research you are doing. So as you do research, as you are able to see the gaps, it can open the way for you to do further research or for others who are going through your work. Now the last part we are saying, the last part is implication for policymakers. Once you have discovered the challenges of the particular work that you had, and then you can now propose, for instance, in our case where we're talking about pastoral insensibility in cultural diversity and the growth of the church, you might propose to the church, whatever church it belongs to, that because there is need for a pastor to understand various cultures, or for city pastor to have a master of various cultures, you advise that when they are sending a pastor to a city center, city congregation, it is good that the pastor should have courses on cultural diversity. So the way you handle people from different cultures will make them feel loved and feel welcome. So these are the policies that these are the implications that future policy makers can take to help that pastors can be sensible when they work in a cultural diverse congregation. I think this is what we have as the conclusions. It's conventional. Joshua said that a conventional approach to conclusion in literature review writing has 4 parts. The first part is the recapitulation of the major points. The second part is talk about the limitations both on the paper you studied and the limitation of your own work that you are writing now. The third part is implications for further research, suggestion of further research. And the last part is implication for policymakers, that's suggestions for public policymakers. With this, we believe that you should have captured the major parts of a literature review, the conclusion, and then he who picks the paper has an idea of what the paper is talking about. Sometimes when we're holding research, we just read the conclusion. So it's very important to have a conclusion that actually represents the paper itself. Thank you very much for listening, dear friends, and we pray that tomorrow we are going to handle the issue of introduction in a literature review. Until then, I wish you the best with your studies and your research. Stay safe.